Hare Krishna, Mataji. Dear devotees, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This evening's reciters are Devi Mataji for English and Anuradha Mataji for Sanskrit. And they will be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 20, verses 18 to 35. So, Anuradha Mataji, please start with the invocation 3 times, okay? Thank you.
Krishna everyone, and the Pranams. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter number 20, starting from the verses 18. ससर्गे छायया विद्यां पञ्चपर्वाणमग्रतः तामिश्रमन्धतामिश्रं तमो मोहो महातमः.
First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the coverings of ignorance of the conditioned soul. There are 5 in number. They are called Tamisra, Andhatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha.
विशिष्टैजात्मनकायं मोहिनन्दं समोमयं जगृयक्षरक्षांक्षी रात्रिंशु त्रिसमुद्भवम्.
Out of this dust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance, and taking this opportunity, Yakshas and Rakshas ran for possession of the body. It continued to exist in the form of night. Night is the source of hunger and thirst.
उत्थित्यमुपशिष्टस्ते संजग्धमभिदुद्रुवुः मा रक्षतैनं जक्षध्वम् इति सुसूत्र आदितः.
Overpowered by hunger, they ran to devour Brahma from all sides of his body. Stir him up, eat him up.
देवस्थानः संविघ्नो मां जक्षत रक्षत अहो मे यक्षरक्षांसि प्रजायूयं बभूवितः.
Brahma, the demigods, full of anxiety, asked them, "Do not eat me, but protect me. You are born from me and have become my sons. Therefore, you are yet."
देवताप्रभयाया दिव्यन्तमुखतो सृजात् ते अहातु देवयन्तो विशिष्टां तं प्रब्रह्मः.
He then created the chief demigods, who were shining with the glory of goodness. He dropped before them the spiritual form of deity, and the demigods sportingly took possession of it.
देवो देवान् जगनतः सृजति माति लोलुपान् तयेनं लोलुपतया मैथुनायाभिपेदिरे.
Lord Brahma then gave birth to the demons from his buttocks, and they were very fond of sex. Because they were too lustful, they approached him for copulation.
ततो हसन्त भगवान् असुरैर्निरपत्रपै अन्वीयमानस्तरसा कृत्वभीतपरापसात्.
The worshipful Brahma first laughed at his stupidity, but finding the shameless asuras close upon him, he grew indignant and ran in great haste out of fear.
उपव्रज्य वरदं प्रपन्नाति हरं हरिम् अनुग्रहाय भक्तानाम् अनुरूपात्मदर्शनम्.
He approached the personality of God, who bestows all boons and who dispels the agony of
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I think you're breaking up quite a bit. Are you close to the speakers?
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. He approached the personality of Godhead, who bestows all boons and who dispels the agony of his devotees, and of those who take shelter of his lotus feet. He manifests his innumerable transcendental forms for the satisfaction of his devotees.
पाहि मां परमात्मांस्ते प्रेषणेनाश्रिजं प्रजा तायि मायाभितुं पापा उपक्रमन्ति मां प्रभो
Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus: My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons, who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me.
त्वम् एकः किल लोकानां क्लिष्टानां क्लेशनाशनः त्वम् एकः क्लेशदस्तेषाम् अनासन्नपदां तव
My Lord, only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet.
सोऽवधार्यास्य कार्पण्यं विविक्ताध्यात्मदर्शनः विमुञ्चात्मा तनुं घोरम् इति युक्तो विमुमोचः
The Lord, who can distinctly see the minds of others, perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, Cast off the impure body of yours. Thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body.
सम्पनच्चरणाम्भोजम् मदविह्वललोचनम् काञ्चिकलापविलसद्रुकुलच्छन्नरोदकम्
The body given up by Brahma took the form of the evening twilight, when the day and night meet, the time which
Hare Krishna
the,
Devi Mataji, Hare Krishna Devi Mataji. Your
yes,
voice is not coming across clearly. Could you speak closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
yes. The body given up by Brahma took the form of the evening twilight, when the day and night meet, the time which kindles passion. The Asuras, who are passionate by nature, dominate as they are by the element of Rajas, took it for themselves, whose lotus feet resounded with the tinkling of anklets, whose eyes were wide with intoxication, and whose hips were covered with fine clothes, over which shone a girdle.
अन्योन्यश्लेषयोत्तुङ्ग निरन्तरापयोधराम् पुनाताम् पृथ्वीजम् साकुलीलावलोकनाम्
Her breasts projected upward because of their clinging to each other, and they were too contagious to admit any space. She had a shapely nose and beautiful teeth. A lovely smile played on her lips, and she cast a spiteful glance at the Ashwins.
गुहन्तीम् गुहन्तीम् हृदयात्मानाम् मिलानकवरूपिणीम् उपलभ्यासुरधर्मा सर्वसम्मोहप्रियम्
Adorned with dark tresses, she hid herself as it were upon seeing that the Asuras were all in with an appetite for sex.
अहो रूपम् अहो धैर्यम् अहो अत्यानगमयः मध्यकामायमानानाम् अकामेव वितर्पति
The demons praised her. Oh, what a beauty! What rare self-control! What a bundling youth! In the midst of her sport, she is moving about like one absolutely free from passion.
Hare Krishna Mataji, are you doing it through your headphones? So you need to come closer to the speaker, please. Thank you.
The demons praised her. Oh, what a beauty! What rare self-control! What a budding youth! In the midst of us all, you are passionately longing for her. She is moving about like one absolutely from passion.
विस्मरयन्तो बहुधा तां सन्ध्यां प्रमदास्थितम् अहं सम्भाव्यविश्रम्भात् पर्यापृच्छन्तु मेधसः
Indulging in various speculation about the evening twilight, which appeared to them endowed with the thought of it, the wicked-minded Asuras treated her with respect and fondly spoke to her as follows.
स्वातीतस्याचिरम्भोरो को वार्थस्य यत्र भामिनी रूपद्रविणपन्येन दुर्भगानो विभाजसे.
Who are you, O pretty girl? Whose wife or daughter are you? And what can be the object of your appearing before us? Why do you tantalize us, unfortunate as we are, with the presence of your beauty?
यावाप्रासित्वमपने दृष्ट्यातं दर्शनं तव उत्तमो उत्तमानानां कन्दुकहृदयाननः.
Whoever you may be, O beautiful girl, you are fortunate indeed to see you. While playing with a horse, you have agitated the minds of all onlookers.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Nikhil Prabhuji, please unmute your mic. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. And thank you, Mataji, for the recitation. Okay, so we'll start with the Mangala Charan, and then we will get started with the class. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone to the next session on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 20. And today we have 4 verses to go through. So that is text 26 to text 29. Okay, so I will share the verses on the screen. Okay, so we're continuing chapter 20, which is, as we know, the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. And specifically, we're hearing pastime of Brahma, Lord Brahma, when he's creating and following the Lord's order, he's creating different forms of life. And we can see here, as a result of that, he got into a lot of trouble with the demons that were created. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sorry, got a bit of a cough. Please bear with me. Okay, so text 26. Pahimam Paramatmam Ste Preshanane, sorry, Preshanena Srijam Prajaha Taima Yabitum Papa Upakramanti Mam Prabhu. Lord Brahma, approaching the Lord, addressed him thus: My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport. It appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. So we'll just discuss and go through each verse one at a time, and definitely most of the time will probably be spent on this verse, just because it is, one of those potentially controversial verses and one which can be easily misunderstood. So I thought it'd be, a good idea to spend, a good amount of time discussing this one. So here it's saying that this homosexual appetite for, for sexual enjoyment with someone of the same gender is considered demoniac and not for any sane person. So first thing to understand, it's saying this sexual appetite is demoniac. It's not saying, all those who are homosexual are demons. It's not saying that. So, but out of context, someone could read this and easily come to that conclusion that here Srila Prabhupada is saying they're all demons, but that's not what he's saying. And I have devotee friends who are gay, so I also feel like it's something we need to clear up any confusion. Okay, so first of all, if we just take any kind of sexual appetite or sexual desire for sexual enjoyment, if we take any kind, in general, then from a spiritual point of view, it's all demoniac. There is no divine sexual appetite. It is all demoniac. It is all, based on material lust. It's all based on enjoying the other person. So whether it's a desire to enjoy, man wishing to enjoy with another woman or with another man, or a woman with a man, or whatever it might be, ultimately it's all based on material enjoyment. And if we have a look at, I think I may have kind of briefly mentioned this last time I gave a class as well, but this verse is very important. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is text 165. Atmendriya priti vancha tare balikam, Krishnendriya priti ichha dhare premanam. The desire to gratify one's own senses is calm, lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema, or love. So this is simply the difference between lust and love. Who are you trying to please? Are you trying to please yourself or Krishna? And that is the only difference. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in other words, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he asserts with authority that sexual love is a matter of personal sense enjoyment. So that's all it is, personal sense enjoyment. So we all understand by now that the constitutional position of every soul, of every living entity, is to be an eternal loving servant of Krishna, in that way please the senses of Krishna. So that is prema. But then when we become contaminated by material nature, we become materially conditioned, then that natural love, which is the nature of every soul, becomes perverted, becomes covered up, and becomes this karma, this lust. But just like we talk about the material conditioning being a covering, like we know Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So it's like dust covering a mirror, but it can be cleaned away. So it's just an external covering, but the true nature of the soul is still there underneath. So similarly, that it's not that love is gone. We all still have that love, but it's just been covered up by that lust. But it's still there underneath. So we just need to clear away that layer of lust. So basically, as I said, any kind of desire for sexual enjoyment, that is a selfish desire, and it comes under this lust. Okay, so, but obviously, there is a place for all these desires. Obviously, this material world has been created for us. Ultimately, it's not something that Krishna wanted, but it's what we wanted. We wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. We had various desires, and Krishna, being very kind, fulfills or is willing to fulfill our desires if that is what we want. He doesn't interfere with our free will. So this material world is here for us to try and enjoy and try and fulfill those material desires, even though ultimately we can never be satisfied in that way. But this is like the playground for us for us like children to try. And as we know, there are 8.4 million species of life, different categories of material bodies that we can take up, all depending on our desires and our karma. The next body we take after this will be determined by our desires and by our previous actions. And as we know, this system of karma is very, very complex, very, very complicated, and not really possible for us to fully understand how it works in our materially conditioned state. You know, yes, our next body is dependent on our desires and actions, but obviously countless actions, many, many desires, all, you know, all mixed together. So it's a very complicated interplay between all these factors, and Krishna's system of karma is figuring in all of these different things. So it's very, very complex. So it's not so easy to say, oh, I had this one desire, therefore I got this body, and it's very clear. It's not always, you know, very clear. But anyway, so all of this, ultimately, all of these different forms of life are being created according to the Lord's direction. And here, Lord Brahma is saying that himself. That first he's saying these, you know, these sinful demons that he's created, but ultimately he says, who were created by me under your order. So we see de preshanena, by your order. So in one sense, it's like Lord Brahma made a mistake, and therefore he created these sinful demons, and then they tried to enjoy, they tried to attack him and enjoy him. But on the other hand, they were created under the Lord's order, and therefore those that have this homosexual appetite, it's not like they are a mistake or something like that. You know, they are born with that desire, with that inclination, and in that sense is not something they have so much, you know, control over. You know, they're born with that desire. But yeah, there's forms of life, and there's forms of kinds of consciousness, to so many different kinds, because we have so many desires. Otherwise, you know, there doesn't need to be, if we go back to the species of life, there doesn't need to be 8.4, you know, million species. You know, maybe there could be 100 species, there could be 1,000 species, but because we have so many complex desires like that, that's why there's so many different species. Anyway, I think I've made that point pretty clear now. So okay, so ultimately we all have this, to some extent we all have this desire, you know, this desire to enjoy, this desire to please our own senses. We all have this desire, otherwise we wouldn't be here in this material world. So regardless of who we want to enjoy with, you know, and what gender there might be, that's a secondary point. But the point is, we all have this desire. So okay, we're here in this material world, we have that desire. What do we do now? Is there anything we can do? How do we, you know, we need an outlet for that desire for enjoyment. You know, if it's not used in a constructive way, then it will be used in a destructive way. But thankfully, Krishna does give us an outlet, a constructive way to use that sexual desire. And he says it himself in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute, and text 11. Balam balavatam chaham kamaraga vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas. Arjun. And then Srila Prabhupada explains, Similarly, sex life, according to religious principles or dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. And the responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. So this is the way that Krishna has given us to utilize that desire. So you want to engage in sex life? Okay, that's fine, but do it in a restricted way. And we see this time and time again in the Vedas. Again, we have so many different desires. Another example, people have the desire to eat meat. So therefore, again, the Vedas say, okay, you have the desire to eat meat, that's fine, if that's what you want to do, but here are some regulations or some restrictions. So fine, if obviously, ideally, we don't want people to eat meat, but if nothing's going to stop them, then better to at least follow the Vedas in some way. So, only have this particular animal, for example, goat, only at this particular time of the month, worship this particular demigod, and all these kind of restrictions. So therefore, they're still following some kind of Vedic injunctions. So similarly, okay, you have that desire for sex life, but do it in a restricted way. Follow the Vedic injunctions. Don't do it outside of marriage is the first thing. Do it within marriage. And what is the purpose of it? To conceive children. And so that's kind of like following the Vedas. But then the devotional way of it, the devotee perspective on it is not just for children, but children that you will then try to raise as devotees. So this is like you could say, the acceptable way in which to utilize that sexual desire. So the reason I listened to some classes on this verse beforehand, just because, as I said, it's a very complex verse and easy to misunderstand. So, but yeah, I definitely got better understanding from some classes which I listened to, and it explained, okay, because I said earlier that ultimately all of these desires to enjoy the sexual appetite, regardless of what kind it is we could say ultimately demoniac. But still, someone would say, okay, fine, but it specifically mentions homosexual appetite here. So why does it specifically mention it here? So ultimately, it's because with that sexual appetite, you cannot conceive children. So therefore, you cannot utilize it in that way. So therefore, it's a more difficult situation. But yeah, even though it says here it's not for any sane male, again, the desire to enjoy anyone sexually is not sane for a spirit soul. No material activities to please our own senses is actually sane. It's only because we are all in this insane condition, in this illusory condition, that we think we're the body, we think we can enjoy, we think we're the control, all of these things. These are not symptoms of a sane living entity. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say regarding this verse, that, and as I said, there's other verses and purports which out of context can be, potentially controversial, people might find difficult to accept. So I thought, yeah, as I said, be good to take some time to explain this. Okay, so text 27. Tvameka kila lokanam klishtanam kleshanashanaha. Tvam eka kleshadastesham anasanna padam tava. Sorry, anasanna padam tava. My Lord, you are the only one capable of ending the affliction of the distressed and inflicting agony on those who never resort to your feet. So at this point, I wanted to ask, would anyone like to volunteer to read this purport? Would anyone like to get some extra mercy of the Bhagavatam by reading this purport for us?
Hare Krishna, may I please, Prabhuji?
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. The words Kleshadas Tesham Anasana Padam Tava indicate that the Lord has two concerns. The first is to give protection to persons who take shelter of his lotus feet, and the second is to give trouble to those who are always demoniac and who are inimical toward the Lord. Maya's function is to give afflictions to the non-devotees. Here Brahma said, "You are the protector of the surrendered souls. Therefore, I surrender unto your lotus feet. Please give me protection from these demons." Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you for reading, Mataji. Okay, so, and we know this from the Bhagavad Gita as well. These two reasons, why Krishna comes here. He comes here to give protection to the devotees and, destroy the demons. We know that from the Bhagavad Gita and from, the many pastimes of the Lord. So then it says that Maya's function is to give afflictions to the non-devotees. So obviously we understand ultimately that Maya is a servant of the Lord, and she's just doing her service. But this is, basically is what's mentioned here, service. One aspect of a service is to give afflictions to the non-devotees. And, why is that? Well, I mean, obviously, just the fact that we have a material body, naturally, we experience afflictions, we experience suffering. I don't need to go into detail on that. We all know the limitations of the human body. And it's not a nice condition to be in for a spirit soul who is ultimately eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss, to be in these flimsy human bodies, which easily prone to sickness and, so many different things. Yeah, for an eternal soul, it's not a nice position to be in. But beyond that, we know there are three kinds of sufferings that we experience in the material world. Those created, by ourselves, like by our own mind, by our body. Those inflicted upon us by other living entities, and those afflicted upon us by nature, for example, natural disasters and things like that. This is just the nature of the material world. And another reason for this, why Maya does this, is that we're not meant to, this is not our home. We're not meant to feel at home here. It's not meant to be comfortable here. We're meant to become fed up with this material world. It may take a long time. It may take many lifetimes. It may take a few. We're all here on this call on this Zoom call because to, I don't know, maybe to varying extents, but we're all fed up with material life, or we're maybe not fed up, but we're not satisfied by material life, and we're looking for something more. So, everyone has to get to this kind of point of material frustration. This is like one of, you could say, the first stage or the early stages of then looking for something more and looking for spiritual life. That at least at the beginning we need to become frustrated with material life. For an advanced devotee, for a pure devotee, it doesn't matter, as we know, whether they're in the material world, spiritual world, it's all the same. They're all just happily engaged in devotional service to Krishna. So they see everything equally. But at least for those of us in the beginning stages, we do need to have a healthy amount of that, this material world, this material life can never satisfy me. I need to find that higher taste. Okay, so because Lord Krishna gives protection to those who take shelter of him, therefore Brahma, he understands in his dangerous situation, the only one he can take shelter of is Krishna, and therefore he does that. So at least from Lord Brahma's point of view, he feels like he made a terrible mistake. He created these demons, and then, they're trying to sexually enjoy him, even though they're essentially like he created them, and therefore he is like their father. But they're so demoniac that they don't care about that. They still try to enjoy with him. So he's in a very precarious situation, and he understood correctly that the only one who can protect him is the Lord. So then what happens? Text 28. Sovadharyasya karpanyam vivikta dhyatma darshanah vimunchatma tanum ghoram ityukto vimochaha. Ityukto vimumochaha. The Lord, who can distinctly see the minds of others, perceived Brahma's distress and said to him, "Cast off this impure body of yours." Thus commanded by the Lord, Brahma cast off his body. So purport. The Lord is described here by the word Vivikta Adhyatma Darshanaha. If anyone can completely perceive another's distress without doubt, it is the Lord himself. If someone is in distress and wants to get relief from his friend, sometimes it so happens that his friend does not appreciate the volume of distress he is suffering. But for the Supreme Lord, it is not difficult. The Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, is sitting within the heart of every living entity, and he directly perceives the exact causes of distress. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sannivishtaha. I am sitting in everyone's heart. Because of me, one's remembrance and forgetfulness occur. Thus, whenever one fully surrenders unto the Supreme Lord, one finds that he is sitting within one's heart. He can give us direction how to get out of dangers or how to approach him in devotional service. The Lord, however, asked Brahma to give up his present body because it had created the demoniac principle. According to Sridhar Swami, Brahma's constant dropping of his body does not refer to his actually giving up his body. Rather, he suggests that Brahma gave up a particular mentality. Mind is the subtle body of the living entity. We may sometimes be absorbed in some thought which is sinful, but if we give up the sinful thought, it may be said that we give up the body. Brahma's mind was not in correct order when he created the demons. It must have been full of passion, because the entire creation was passionate. Therefore, such passionate sons were born. It follows that any father and mother should also be careful while begetting children. The mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the Garbhadana Samskar, or the ceremony for giving birth to a child, is observed. Before begetting a child, one has to sanctify his perplexed mind. When the parents engage their minds in the lotus feet of the Lord, and in such a state the child is born, naturally good devotee children come. When the society is full of such good population, there is no trouble from demoniac mentalities. So there's quite a few points mentioned here. So yeah, so just as Srila Prabhupada often says this point in his classes as well, that we only know the happiness and pains within our own body, but we don't know the happiness and suffering within the bodies of others. But the Lord, being present within every single body, he is the only one who can perceive the sufferings and enjoyment of every single living entity. Therefore, he could immediately understand Lord Brahma's situation, and he could understand what is the solution. And he advised him that because your mentality, your mind, or in other words, this demonic principle is created through your subtle body, therefore give up your subtle body. You don't need to give up your gross body, but give up the subtle body, because that is where that mentality is contained, within the mind, within the subtle body. So therefore, by giving up a certain state of mind, we are essentially taking up a new subtle body, or taking up a new mind, we could say. So that is what Lord Brahma did here. So it's not that he completely gave up that whole gross body and then took up a new gross body. It wasn't like that. So yeah, so as we know, Lord Brahma is very fortunate that whenever he is in such a distressful situation and he doesn't know what to do, he can surrender to the Lord. He can approach the Lord, and he approaches Kshirodakashai Vishnu, and then often we see in the pastimes the demigods, the other demigods, they don't know what to do, so then they approach Lord Brahma, and then on their behalf Lord Brahma then approaches Lord Vishnu, and it's said elsewhere that specifically approaches Kshirodakashai Vishnu, and then the Lord actually speaks to him. So in that sense, he's very fortunate. So here, directly from the Lord, he's been given the solution, just like Arjuna heard directly from the Lord and was given the solution to his dilemma on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Similarly, Brahma was instructed directly by the Lord. So, very fortunate. And so Lord Brahma is very advanced. from this pastime and from other pastimes, it's easy to, even though we are here materially conditioned living entities, we can sometimes look down on Lord Brahma. It's like, oh, okay, Lord Brahma is a demigod, but he did all these he made these silly mistakes, and we may even think, oh, we would never do that. So we may even think, subtly, that we're even better than Lord Brahma. Sometimes we need to be reminded, still he's in a much higher position than we are. He's been given such a huge service of, as we say, the secondary creation of the universe. And he is directly in contact with the Lord, like we see here. So he's in a very high position. But anyway, so the Lord gives him the solution. And then there's another point here which relates to what I mentioned earlier. So we have the outlet for utilizing our sex desire is use it to conceive children. And ultimately, like Srila Prabhupada always said, make Krishna conscious children. But then one might ask, ultimately, we can't choose. Okay, we conceive our children, but then surely it's not up to us. We could raise them as best as we can, but they might still become, demoniac, or they might still become criminals. Who knows what they'll become? How is that under our control? We can only do our part, but ultimately it's up to them what they become. So we can, to some extent, that may be true. Obviously, ultimately they're in control of their own destiny, but like it says here, that the mental condition of a child depends upon the mental status of his parents at the time he is conceived. So to go further, we can understand that at the time of conception, the soul that decides to take shelter on the womb of the mother, it's not by chance that some particular soul enters. It's not by chance. So therefore, a more godly soul, or someone who's in his past life has been more godly, they would be attracted to a certain to take shelter of a certain womb. So they would naturally be attracted to certain parents, whereas therefore those with a demonic mentality, then those those particular souls will be attracted there. So therefore, in order to attract that godly soul, the parents need to be in the right frame of mind. Just like like we understand Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wanted a child who would be a ray of Vishnu, who would be a great devotee of the Lord, a pure devotee of the Lord. And by his desire, he got, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his son. Okay, so therefore we have the Garbhadana samskar. We have all these different samskars given in the Vedas that are meant to be followed, but in today's day and age is not really followed. No one follows Garbhadana samskar. No one even knows about it really, or very few people. Especially if you're not a devotee. But one practical point which is mentioned, that Srila Prabhupada mentions, that for devotees this includes chanting 50 rounds before you conceive the child. So there's a lot of preparation, that if you want to really be in the best mentality, you should chant 50 rounds of the Maha Mantra beforehand. And if you do that, that will go a long way to being the right frame of mind. Because, you know, just imagine after chanting so many rounds, you know, if you chanted sincerely, after chanting so many rounds, you're not really going to be lusty. It's highly unlikely, you know, and therefore you will engage in that in the right way. Because ultimately you could look at it as a service to conceive Krishna conscious children is a service, you know, and then obviously raising them is a service. Like Srila Prabhupada said to some of his disciples, you know, after they had children, that now the best service you can do now is to raise your children in a Krishna conscious way, you know, rather than, you know, like becoming like a you know, a brahmachari or living in the temple or like giving everything up, you know, like that. Or, you know, don't worry if you can't do all of those different service or book distribution. Even mentions like, for you, your parent now, this is your main service, to raise devotees. So again, because you've prepared in the right way, follow the Garbhadana Samskar, then it's highly likely that that you will raise, you know, a godly child. Again, ultimately, you know, it's up to that person. They have their own free will, and we can't force them to become a devotee, but we can do our best. Okay, and then finally, text 29. Tvam Kwanacharadam Bhojam Mada Vivalalochanam Kanchi Kalapa Vilasad Dukula Channarodasam. The body given up by Brahma took the form of the evening twilight, when the day and night meet, a time which kindles passion. The asuras, who are passionate by nature, dominated as they are by the element of rajas, took it for a damsel, whose lotus feet resounded with the tinkling of anklets, whose eyes were wide with intoxication, and whose hips were covered by fine cloth, over which shone a girdle. As early morning is the period for spiritual cultivation, the beginning of evening is the period for passion. Demoniac men are generally very fond of sex enjoyment, therefore they very much appreciate the approach of evening. The demons took the approach of the evening twilight to be a beautiful woman, and they began to adore her in various ways. They imagined the twilight to be a very beautiful woman with twinkling bangles on her feet, a girdle on her hips, and beautiful breasts, and for their sexual satisfaction, they imagine the appearance of this beautiful girl before them. So, yeah, just like we mentioned before, like it says here, demonic men are generally very fond of sex enjoyments. Ultimately, again, going back to the difference between lust and love, and how lust is to please our own senses. And there are different times, as we know, everything in the material world comes under the modes of material nature, and that includes the times of the day. The early hours of the day are in the mode of goodness, later hours are passion, and the very late hours are in mode of ignorance. And we all experience this, we all feel this. If we wake up early, I'm not saying I wake up early regularly, but I'm just saying if we wake up early, you know, I'm preaching to myself here as well, that if we wake up early, we feel it. We feel better. We feel like we're more in the mode of goodness. In a practical way, there are less distractions. You know, most people are not awake yet. It's generally more quiet, and we can more easily focus on spiritual life. Whereas as the day goes on, it gets busier, it gets more hectic. People become more passionate, and then the end of the day, they've had a busy day working or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, as Srila Prabhupada always says, what do they do? Then they come home and enjoy sex life. And that's how they spend their days. So, and yeah, it's more easy to end up in a demoniac mentality or a lusty mentality in the later hours than in the morning. Okay, so therefore, it says here that the demons very much appreciate the approach of evening. And as we'll see in the, obviously we're not going to discuss today, but in the later verses, that the demons are bewildered in this way, but the devotees are not. They could be amongst this beautiful woman and not be disturbed, but the demons are disturbed, again, because of that difference between lust and love. The devotees have that love, they just want to please Krishna's senses. So that's, I think we're all familiar with this point now. So that's all we'll say on this verse. And obviously, we're coming towards the end of our time anyway. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions or comments or corrections at this point? Please feel free. Yes, Shana Mataji.
Hare Krishna, that was an excellent class. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you were talking about the different levels of consciousness
Yeah.
in previous. What are those levels of consciousness?
Sorry, you were going to say different levels of consciousness in?
Yeah.
No, you said in previous something.
Yeah, in previous verse, you were talking
Oh,
about
right.
the
Okay.
different species of life and that there are different levels of consciousness.
No, that wasn't in a previous verse. I was just speaking generally
Okay.
that the reason why we have all those different species of life, the 8.4 million different species of life, that each one has a different kind of consciousness or different level of consciousness, and therefore we have something similar to the theory of evolution, but for us the evolution of the species is in terms of evolution of consciousness. So the higher species, as we know, ending up in human life, have progressively higher and higher levels of consciousness. So it's so yeah, every species of life has a different kind of, you could say also in a different way, a different combination of the modes of material nature. Srila Prabhupada often gives the analogy of a painter. You have the three primary colors, and with the three primary colors, you can create all other colors. Through various combinations, we can create all other colors. So therefore, we have these three primary colors, these modes of material nature, but there are various combinations, and those are kind of covered by the different species of life, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments or chastisements? Oh, sorry. I don't know who was first. Shriji Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for explaining the verses so clearly, quite easy to understand. But could you go back to purport of text 26, please? There's something I was going to ask you to clarify for me, please.
Yes, one second. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes. Where it says Brahma being attacked.
Yes.
I can't imagine how anyone could or would attack Brahmaji. So how would you explain that, please? Thank you.
yeah, I mean, obviously, we can understand that these demons, I mean, these are like proper demons. These are like really, really demoniac people that essentially their only aim in life is to enjoy, and the highest form of material enjoyment is sexual enjoyment. So ultimately, the aim of life for these demons is sexual enjoyment, and because they're so degraded, they ultimately they don't care who they enjoy with. It could be like, whoever's around. Like sometimes even Srila Prabhupada says, this material lust is so strong that sometimes people may even be overcome by desire for their own mother, sister, like that. He even mentions that this lust is so strong. Therefore, even though Lord Brahma was essentially their father in this pastime, but still they were so overcome with lust that they pursued Lord Brahma. And also we can understand Lord Brahma, he's not an old man. Like the form that he has a beautiful form as well. It's not like he's like in an old man form. Sometimes we may think of Lord Brahma like with an old man. His foreheads, they all have white beards on each foreheads, but he has a beautiful body. It's not a body like ours, actually. Sometimes, obviously, in various pastimes, he gives up the body, like we mentioned. He gives up different mentalities, but ultimately, it's said that Lord Brahma has a body which is composed of intelligence. It's actually made of intelligence. So just like our bodies are made of matter, gross matter, but his body is actually made of intelligence. So it's not like ours. And yeah, we can understand, he has a nice effulgent body. And yeah, somehow or other, these demons became attracted. I think that's all I can say on this. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else before we finish? Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's chat class. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful Krishna conscious weekend. Hare Krishna. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Anantakoti
Anantakoti
Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Excellent class, Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone. Hare
Class,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare